Rough.
He did maybe, last year, I think.
Hey, Lee, it's so fun to have you in town for a day like
And looking
today.
good. And
yeah,
looking good.
We don't get a lot of people in Alexander McQueen jackets. We really like it.
Yeah.
So last time we had you on,
Yeah.
remember that was an exciting day.
No, the 5th of April is a short volatility, short squeeze
February,
crash.
yes.
Oh, February.
I know, you're jumping ahead to April. Now I want to know what I should be in April. Right now, you had thought that was not the time. That low was not the day to buy. You wanted some patience. Now, is this long enough?
Yes, this is fine. This is fine. Actually, we're not even at the level yet that we were the Thursday after we saw each other. And it was that Friday on the 9th that I went and bought because I had a 10% correction. I've been waiting for that since when? Since you just mentioned a few minutes ago, January 2016, I was in there on February 11th, had no idea that was the bottom. I thought I had missed the bottom, and that's where we were buying. So this is the same thing. We haven't seen it bad since January 16. This is where you buy. You could have bought back on the 8th of February. I think you can buy today, and I'm not worried about those who say a bottom never gets locked on a Friday. There's been instances. We are trying to reverse engineer a narrative. I think Trump is all bark, no bite. I know Larry Kudlow, he's in that job. This is all about negotiation. And look at Century Aluminum, that was the tell, right? That was down 20% yesterday. Last week, JP Morgan said this thing's going to 29 bucks because of Trump, because Trump controls the market, and then it's down 20%. You know why? Some exemptions, or maybe we're going to...
A lot of flexibility in there.
Yeah, you know what I'm flexible on? 10% correction.
And
buy
so
'em.
Caterpillar, that's taking a big hit, but the Chinese are still going to be buying those babies because it's not really going to happen.
Right.
They're not canceling airline orders from Boeing.
Boeing, same kind of thing, right?
His bark is worse than his bite, but still...
He's barking.
He barks a lot.
Yes.
So are we just supposed to ignore all his barking, tweeting, talking?
Oh, hell no. Look, it gave us a 10% correction to buy. I haven't had a time to put new capital or overweight my stocks by 3 to 5%, which, I manage money for old retired people, so that's like a massive, shift. I haven't had that since February 16, January 16. So I need, we talked all last year that this guy talks so much, we're immune to it. Now we're not, and that's where I get action. I make money when people panic. I make money when we believe in the reverse engineering. Look at last year. I remember, I think I was on here saying I'm concerned about the inauguration, I'm concerned about having a redux of Reagan and all that. It didn't happen because he talks too much.
Let's talk about some of the specifics in this market right now. We have closed. We on the Dow are off more than 400 points to end the day. This is the worst week that we've had for the markets in 2 years here. Crude, having a pretty good day. Some of the sectors that were really beat up, the XLF, financials, Miles, when you were down there in DC for the Fed, we were talking about the 10-year hitting 3, and like, this is going to be good for banks.
And then yesterday, it looked like the risk on trade was fine.
Yeah.
Right?
So
risk off.
Risk off. So, then risk off continued today. Financials are destined to be beaten up here for
Bank
a while.
America down 4.5%. Yeah, JP Morgan off 2.5%. Wells Fargo down 2%. Although the 10-year back to 283, I don't really think that that's going anywhere. I mean, I think the story about the 10-year wanting to head towards 3%, I think it still has a date with 3% at some point. The Fed is going to continue to raise interest rates. I mean, that's very clear. So I think that's a very interesting dynamic in markets, just looking at that whole, the endless debate of are higher rates good for the banks? Are they bad for the banks? Is that a reason to buy banks? And all that.
Until the 10-year is 4.25%, I'm really not caring about balance sheets, right? And I think if you look back over decades and decades and decades, 4.25% is where I start getting nervous. We can't even get a 3 handle, right? So I'm not.
How
really
can you
too
even
concerned
talk about 4.25%? That's like
a
I don't even know
miles
when that
away.
could happen.
Doesn't exist anymore.
How?
That's only taking us back. I mean, look at what those rates were back in 2013. They weren't quite 4, but we're definitely into the 3s back then.
Right.
People still bought homes in 2013. As much as I can remember. I think this bank trade is just a risk-off trade because the banks are going to do better with a little higher.
One thing that feels different to me this week, Andy, versus the beginning of February, was people were talking a lot about the fundamentals are really good. Like, fundamentals are okay. Like, don't worry. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm hearing that the same way, that there is a little bit more skepticism out there, to Miles' point earlier.
Well, but then, the Fed just raised rates. So how bad could things be? And they talked about the strength of the economy. I mean, you're talking about a level of granularity, Jen, that I think is lost on many people. I think that, I mean, look at the unemployment rate.
Yeah, but retail sales are down 3 months in a row. You know, I just feel like there's.
But how's Amazon's business? You know, so.
Well, for me, very good.
Right. I feel like that part of the story is still intact. In other words, there's no way things have fallen off the cliff. I mean, remember, we're talking about like this, you know, the market right now, which is, you know, a forward-looking voting machine, and nothing's happened yet. I mean, the economy is certainly not dropped off, and rates, and we don't have this inflation we were looking for either.
Not yet. Let's take a look right now at some of today's winners and losers. Stocks in the red today include Progenics, as the FDA extended its review of one of its experimental treatments. Chipotle, investors take some money off the table following a pop in shares this week. And Micron Technology, shares of the chip maker sliding after it said supply disruptions may affect current quarter production. A lot of volume there. Shares in the green, we've got Nike as the world's largest athletic wear retailer beat on earnings and on an adjusted basis, with revenue topping estimates as well.
There's some retail sales for you. Good.
That is true.
Okay.
Looking at my closet at least.
KB Home, as the Detroit-based home builder, beat on earnings by a healthy margin, although it missed slightly on revenue. And Dropbox, shares soaring on the cloud company's public debut after initially pricing at $21 a share. So a good day for the former tech unicorn.
And there is a counterpoint to everything else going on in tech land this week.
I
mean, I was like, boy, these guys picked a bad day to go public, right? I was like looking for some really bad action there, but it worked out fine for them.
You know what? If you have a decent business,
right,
nice cash flow generating business with growing revenues and growing earnings, I think Dropbox kind of overcomes all the negative thing. All you got to do is read the filing and you're just like, well, things looks pretty good.
You know what didn't look really good this week?
Yeah.
Basically everything for Facebook. Facebook had a total week from hell. The stock off more than 10% for the week, or just around 10% there over 5 days. It really hit Fang where it hurts. It is not over yet. The Senate Commerce Committee just this afternoon calling for Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg to testify about the whole Cambridge Analytica data scandal. We've got Elon Musk yanking Tesla and SpaceX's pages off the book. Actor Jim Carrey also on the Facebook crusade. Delete Facebook is trending on Twitter. Is Facebook vulnerable here? What do you think, Lee? You buy Facebook here?
No, I don't buy Facebook here. What are you, crazy? 10%?
It's down a lot.
10%? If you adjust for the beta of that stock, if it was down 20%, I would be curious about what's going on with their online ad sales. But here's the bottom line. Facebook is about one thing, selling ads. The momentum is based on one thing, mobile ad sale, okay? So if we see a drop in mobile ad sale the next time they announce earnings, and they even suggest Jim Carrey, or suggest SpaceX.
I love it when
had
you talk
some
about Jim
impact.
Carrey.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Suggest that that's what caused online mobile growth.
Yeah.
This thing goes lower. But this is a big platform. I mean, how am I supposed to know like what's going on in the world if I'm not on Facebook? Right?
It is possible.
It is, but I would say that momentum, I think people are really going to have to question now that there's a backlash. It's not that individual people are ditching out of Facebook. It's these big corporate ad buyers. Yeah. And that's why this is material. If it was just a snafu and some people were upset and you had people deleting their accounts, that's one thing. That happens all the time. So I think that's the only thing when Facebook earnings come out, the only thing you judge is to hear their comments and say, is this associated with a drop in growth in online sales? And as soon as they say that, I'm out.
Right.
Three things. Standard search, standard social, standard commerce.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Google, Facebook, and Amazon, like Standard Oil. Okay,
Right.
Rockefeller was a big man in capital until he found his company smashed into little bitty pieces.
Right.
We've seen it, my lifetime when I was a little baby with Ma Bell.
Right.
This is going to happen. The problem is, these places, especially standard search and standard social, right? Google and Facebook, because they make so much money off of ad sales, it's going to be very difficult for a regulator and say, how are we going to crush
you up.
Standard Oil the way that we did 100 years ago? Amazon could be a little easier.
Well, some of those businesses you could break. I mean, you could take YouTube out of Google. You could break up the 4 platforms of Facebook. But there's the stuff that they're talking about, and they're like, Facebook says, oh, we will be regulated. They were just talking about having their ads being labeled. I mean, that was that to me was a real canard. And the other thing that I thought was sort of specious, peculiar that Mark Zuckerberg said, among other things, was he said, this is not rocket science. No, actually it is. It's really complicated. For instance, get this part, right? We all sort of know in terms of your own data that maybe you opted in and maybe you didn't, and you should have looked at the fine print, and you could probably prevent that from happening. But what about sharing your friends' data and your friends' data being shared? And how would you opt in or opt out of that? No, you can't share my friends' data, but what if your friends want their data shared through that mechanism? It's very complicated. I was very surprised he said that. I thought it was the opposite of self-serving.
But the sharing's supposed to help us, right? Like,
Right.
I want it to
And it does help
I want
us.
Google to say, like, oh, you're supposed to be here, and it's going to
Yes,
do. So
and it does help us a million times.
Would you buy Google now?
Again, I don't think that it's come down enough for what's happening.
Google
It's
is
not-
off the last 5 days, almost 9%.
It's just not enough. Remember,
But not enough.
It's up a zillion%
It's
over
up
the
a
past 2 years.
There-
I mean, you've got. I mean,
5 days, 8%.
A zillion minus
Another
8.
another
That's not good
2.5%.
math for Lee.
Google, you called it
15.
standard search.
yeah.
But so how far does it have to go down?
It has to go down to the point.
Half a
where-
zillion.
Yeah, half a zillion. Half a zillion. It's got to go down, I think, from peak to trough. You have to look at about 20-25%. That's not bear market. That's just, guys, I used to be a trader.
A zillion minus.
Right? I used to trade stocks all day long.
Right.
You have to adjust for volatility. When the S&P goes down 10%, it's easy to buy. If emerging markets go down 10%, I'm just getting my coffee in the morning. When Caterpillar goes down 10%, wow, I'm not saying I want to buy it, but I'm interested in looking.
Yes.
But
I
when
hear you.
Facebook or Google or Amazon go down 10%, that's just a rounding error. That's like a 2% down
But
day.
these are for
I've gotta see.
stocks that we've just seen go up and up and up.
Yeah, I know.
We're not used to things that just don't go in a
It's like
straight line.
Warren Buffett over here.
And I think really since the crisis, there's been a lack of large companies going down 70% for reasons that might seem unclear. But to your point, Lee, I think that stuff used to happen a lot more frequently. And there is certainly a market regime with the Fed raising rates, pulling back accommodation. We get back to this more normalized environment that people have been clamoring for the last few years, where we start to see these kinds of things. Facebook might fall 40%, and everyone says that's crazy. Why is it down? It's like, well, it doesn't matter why it's down. If it's down that much, then it's down that much, and you can talk about it then. I'm not saying it will.
Another thing that could
possible.
push Facebook down to that 40% level, I just need to note this real quick, is that the selfie culture is under attack from the Cannes Film Festival. They are banning what they're calling the ridiculous and grotesque act of taking a selfie
French.
on the red carpet. It's funny.
That's
that
actually
they're-
It is funny.
that
That's
they're
the
banning
wrong.
it.
That's the wrong side of history.
But do
You
know?
think so? You think the
Yeah, you
selfies
think people are going to
here
stop taking
Right.
selfies? Come on, that's
I don't know.
Did you see he was outraged? But there were selfies than that.
Because there's no French word for selfie. That's
Right,
why they don't
exactly.
like it.
And you can't introduce that word into the French language because it's an Americanization of the French language, and they hate
It's
that.
illegal.
I think it's a sign that people are
There
sick
were
of their
selfies.
phones and they're sick of data and they're sick of
French guys
technology.
sick of the Americans with their phones. But there were selfies, like the person who does it at the funeral.
Yeah.
That's bad. And what about that person who did it at that art exhibit and knocked over that $250,000 sculpture? Remember that one?
Some of them are bad.
That was.
I think
I
that
would do.
say what you will about the French, they could be us onto something. It is March Madness, and we are getting in the game here. Dropbox, of course, hitting the public market today. But what unicorn do you think will be tops in the long run? Yes, Dropbox not able to enter
out.
here. We are looking, people, for the next Amazon, the next Facebook, the next Google. Here are the contenders. We've got 16 companies.
Put 'em up.
We have 2 brackets
great.
in here. And it's our unicorn bracket. We are going to get to a winner. Guys, we're going to have to do this pretty quickly. So let's go to the incubator conference. You
So
ready?
see how they're seated, everyone,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So the seat.
We're just getting down to 8 picks here, guys. These are seated roughly by market cap, okay?
UVA versus University of Maryland, Baltimore campus.
So let's start. We've
Okay.
got Ant Financial. That's the fintech part of Alibaba.
Alibaba. They have,
Used
like,
to
they
be
dominate
Alipay.
China.
And
Right.
Coinbase, the crypto play. Real quick. Anybody?
And financial.
Anybody
Yeah,
not
but-
agree with
I'm
Ant?
going to take this.
And financial.
I'm taking Coinbase.
I take
Okay,
Ant.
okay,
I'm
you're
taking the
out.
upset.
And financial.
Fade
Because it's
Wait,
crypto versus China.
But and financial could go crypto.
I'm going
And
crypto.
financial. Okay,
Okay.
SpaceX versus Lyft here. Miles, you get first.
Lyft, no question.
Really?
Oh,
Shoot, I was going to go SpaceX.
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 SpaceX got funding from Old Man Johnson, over Fidelity. So
All right, I lose.
And
I lose.
SpaceX,
Fine.
Don't bet against them.
It's
Yes.
Elon Musk.
like
3
that.
out of
You know I'm-
P1.
you know I'm short that Elon
SpaceX
knows
is
here.
in. All right, this is a tough one here. Spotify, Pinterest.
Jen, you go first.
Okay, I am going to go Spotify. It's boring.
Totally.
Agree. Yeah, Spotify.
Totally.
Are you going to even?
I was just going to say Pinterest because I think the streaming thing.
You've never been on Pinterest.
Oh, you're short streaming.
You've never been on Pinterest in your entire life, Lee.
I do have a Pinterest when I redecorate my office. I do little Pinterest
Okay.
and stuff, but I
All
keep
right.
them hidden.
That's a minority view. That's
I-
a minority report.
I'll take
I
yeah.
like
So does
Pinterest.
Spotify.
I have Pinterest. I've just never bought anything on it, and I give
like Apple
Spotify
Music.
money
Music
every.
Everything. Music
so we're-
Okay.
is
we're
the universal
Xiaomi-
language, and love is the key. Thank
Xiaomi
you.
versus House. Andy, do you even use House? No.
Xiaomi.
Xiaomi's had a bad week, people. It has
Xiaomi.
not had a good week. The hardware stuff is
Xiaomi
not
the
going
money.
well in the U.S. but
Xiaomi the love.
You got to go Xiaomi, right?
Xiaomi. Fine.
I'd say
right.
House because Rick Newman loves House, but fine.
Rick is in
Xiaomi
here.
the-
Xiaomi. All right, those are the 4 that are moving from the incubator bracket. Bootstrap Conference, Airbnb versus WeWork. Airbnb. WeWork is like a real
Airbnb.
estate.
Airbnb.
I like Airbnb.
I
Airbnb.
like WeWork, but
I like
I'm gonna
Airbnb a
lose.
lot. I do not like commercial real estate.
Airbnb,
very much at all.
Airbnb. Lee,
Yeah,
you're
commercial- yeah,
deciding.
Airbnb.
moves.
Airbnb.
DD versus Slack.
Slack.
I kind of would to go Slack too because I feel like
Going against China again.
I feel like Slack has
Going up
changed
against
so
China.
much about
Yeah.
the modern
Lee gets the
workflow.
vote.
It's
Even
gonna
if
get
it's
rid of
bad,
email.
It's just, it's,
I
Well,
think
put
this is
way,
the upset.
do you use
Slack.
Salesforce can be a little mid-sized company and be on its own. Slack can be a tiny
Okay,
little
they put
piece of
Slack
crap
in
that
there.
can exist. Just put Slack.
I think that Slack is our
China
upset.
got one
fine.
with ants.
Sorry,
okay?
and Xiaomi.
Xiaomi But I'm not a
And Xiaomi
Xiaomi,
also.
okay.
Palantir
Oh.
versus Flipkart.
Palantir.
Palantir
CIA.
in a heartbeat. I kind of
CIA.
think Palantir goes all the way, but
Go for it.
Palantir, you okay with that, Miles?
No
And
views.
finally, Uber, Instacart.
Was there Uber? It should just be Uber against Uber.
well, the thing is, yeah, so here's
I live in Albuquerque. My life runs on Uber.
the problem with this
Breaking
matchup
Bad up
is
in there.
I don't love Uber, but Instacart is not a very formidable competitor.
Well, look
against
at the
them.
seeds. It's 215.
Okay,
Right, but there's
handicap
but
this.
I think
It's a
you know,
2 seed, and
I
so it's
think
going up against
Instacart
the
is like Instacart's like a 25 seed.
Uber, right?
Well, we had to.
Ooh,
they got
I know,
it.
We had to
really
pick
got 16.
They
something.
won their
All right,
conference.
Uber is
That's what they
moving
got in.
on.
That's right, right.
So
American
now we
East
have
West.
our Elite 8 in the unicorn
great.
bracket.
We gotta do this more often.
We
There you
are
go.
looking for the next Amazon, the next Facebook. We want to hear from you. If you've got ideas, let us know because
This
we're going to
is
be
good.
talking about this next week, you guys, and
I'm
we
enjoying
need to
this.
hear.
So nice.
Yeah, it's great.
I
I
love,
love
I
it.
love this.
I love this.
It's
We all
so
love it.
interesting. The Slack upset has me really excited.
And can
wanna
we
let
say
you-
goodbye, House?
Just want to let you know, my mother texted me and
Good
said
night,
that she
Moon.
wanted Pinterest to win the
Oh,
Spotify match.
shoot.
Because your
Miles' mom, I
doesn't
would've-
click to opt out on her data being shared because she doesn't know how to.
I just don't
Neither
think
do
she
I.
uses Spotify or really knows what it is.
That's right.
Pinterest.
I like
There it is.
Pinterest. I really do like Pinterest, but Spotify I'm already getting
that was
money
a
to.
tough-
Subscription
that was a tough
thing.
one.
Because Pinterest could start putting in ads and stuff, and I'd be like, whatever. I just need to get this little picture, something from
Pinterest
Yeah.
wanted to be against
Crate and
House.
Barrel.
Yeah, Pinterest
they
against
didn't like
House,
their
I would
seating,
go Pinterest. But
right?
their seating, I don't
seating
know
was
who
tough.
did it.
Can't do two homewares.
Yeah.
You know,
That was
Sorry. Okay, just a little note for all of you purists out there. There are a whole world of alternative brackets. We know we didn't just come up with this all on our own. We've got SB Nation's fried chicken bracket. That's very
Oh,
important.
Yes, that's a good bracket.
Lots of good picks there.
Tasty
There's
one.
also Vulture's Best TV Sitcom bracket.
Yes, you love that one.
Yes, I love it. There's a lot of important brackets out there.
There's like
Not
and
win.
we,
writers and stuff, American writers. There are all kinds of.
We're just adding to the fun.
That's a good bracket we got.
I'm
We have our
not a
bracket.
Simpsons guy. Simpsons doesn't do it for me.
I know,
I
I'm
agree
not
with that.
either,
I
Miles.
agree with that.
I always blame it on animation.
Cheers. I think maybe I would have picked Cheers.
Oh, no.
Cheers is a great show.
You don't like Cheers?
Oh, no.
What show do you like?
It's Boston. I don't
Okay.
know. Is Archie Bunker on there?
Probably.
Okay.
Andy, Miles, so thanks so much. Lee, so great to have
Yeah.
you here.
I love being here.
Uncle Lee, come on
I
back.
brought the
Good.
sunshine.
In the neighborhood.
We,
over
we,
there, right?
we need it. We'll see you next time on Skype. And now here's Miles Udland with a look ahead at what's going to be making headlines next week.
All right, well, this past week will be one to remember for investors. The Fed raised interest rates for the 6th time since the crisis in Jay Powell's first meeting since being named Fed chair. Facebook shares lost more than 10% during the week that the social media network found itself firmly on the wrong side of both public and investor opinion. And the stock market got roughed up pretty good. The Dow lost more than 700 points on Thursday, while the S&P 500 dropped 2.5% in that session, and Friday's close was not much more constructive. Stocks are now well in the red for the year and sitting near the lows hit during the early February sell-off. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump begrudgingly signed a spending bill on Friday. Trump also slapped tariffs on Chinese imports, and in return, the Chinese put tariffs on some U.S. exports. Now, this might not be the start of a trade war, but the market definitely doesn't think it's great. So as we come to the end of the first quarter in the week ahead, it's obvious the market is at something like an inflection point. The easy living of 2017 appears gone, and now we find out just how hard the rest of 2018 is going to be, and if there will be any more weeks like the one that investors just endured. Now turning to the calendar for the week ahead, on the earnings side, notable results expected out should include Red Hat, Constellation Brands, Monsanto, and Lululemon. And on the economic side, home prices, consumer sentiment, inflation readings, as well as the third estimate of fourth quarter GDP will all serve as highlights. And markets, you'll remember, are also closed next Friday for Good Friday, and Congress begins its 2-week recess.
I totally forgot about that. That's such good news.
Holiday season.
It is
The
not an
market's
oath.
You mean there's
closed
only
next
4 days for
Friday.
stocks to go down next
It is
week?
not an
Is that
oath
what you mean?
holiday. Not an oath
It's not
holiday.
a holiday for us.
No,
but
I'm taking. I live in New Mexico. It's a Catholic state, so it's like required.
You're off,
Yeah, we're off.
I didn't know that.
We're off.
Yes,
we're off.
yeah.
So yeah, it's nice we're gonna have a Friday off because let's look at the numbers one more time on this
Ugly.
lovely Friday.
You don't want to have another Friday for a long time, people.
Yeah,
We're
look
gonna,
at
we're gonna
that.
skip next Friday. I think
We
this
are.
looks great for buying right now.
Look at him. He's licking his chops.
If we're
He's like this.
down, I'll tell you one thing. If we can get down to 24.80, mark my words right now. If this thing continues and Andy's right, which he's wrong, but if he's right, because I don't know,
My head's
I'm
on
just
swivel.
I'm just as clueless as Andy. I have no idea.
That's-
but if
that's
I
a lot.
do, if I do see 24.80, I think that's his second buy point. That's where I'm going to be all in for the year. Trade's done until January 1st of 2019.
Love that call.
Do you know
Love
it?
that
Done.
call.
The rest
All
of
right,
the year off
good. We
lead.
got it. We're
Strong
going
call.
to tweet that
Yeah,
out. I like looking at that and what the NASDAQ did. This Jared just pointed this out, that the XLK made new all-time highs last week. And
Really?
now,
Wild.
yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
Giving up nearly all gains for the year, though, now. It's up only 0.7% after hitting all-time
That's a
highs
swing.
last week. A huge swing. These numbers for the S&P, the NASDAQ, and the Dow are the worst week that we've had in 2 years. We ended with 206 NYSE stocks hitting new 52-week lows. That's the most since February 9th, and every sector closing the week in the red. We'll send you off with that, but just think,
On that note,
you get next Friday off.
yeah.
That's all for now from New York. I'm Jen Rogers, and this is the final round on Yahoo Finance.
Traders are always looking for advantages. The smart ones look to Fidelity to find them. Our exclusive platform combines 10 research monitoring